I know this is a spooky video and I'm literally wearing flowers, but it's spring in Australia and I'm in a spring mood and I'm in a spooky mood. And like, I kind of feel like it's fall here, but that might be because I'm watching so many like fall TBRs or autumn TBRs. It definitely doesn't feel like autumn, like I'm dying of heat, but the vibes are there this year. I don't know what it is. I've just been eating up every single spooky horror thriller book to the point where I'm going to read more in November because I'm just loving it. Hey everyone, it's Isabella. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my channel if you are new. Today we are filming spooky book recommendations, books you must read in the spooky season, whatever you want to call it. We have classics, we have thrillers, we have horrors. I'm going to keep my magical realism books and make a whole nother video dedicated to that because there's just so many that I could talk about. Also, please ignore how I look. It is really hot in Australia right now and I have no ventilation going on in my room apart from my window because I don't want the fan to be annoying. So if I'm looking sweaty and gross, it's because I am. There will be a good mixture of popular books and books that I literally have heard nobody talk about. I've tried to balance it out so that there's a little bit for everyone. But yeah, I'm really excited. I love the spooky season. First book. Even the birds are excited. This is my favorite book. I read this last October and I just finished my reread of it. Still my favorite spooky book. I love it. And that is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This is like semi-popular. Like I've heard a few people talk about it. Everyone needs to talk about this book. It is so cool. It is so weird. And it's definitely for spooky season. This story follows three sisters, Iris, Grey, and Vivi. Iris is the youngest, Grey is the eldest. Grey is very, very famous. She's like a model. Vivi is like a rebel. She's the middle child. She's in a punk band. And Iris is the youngest. She's the perfect golden child. And they're all very different, but they all have some fame due to something that happened when they were children. They disappeared without a trace for I think it was 1 or 2 months, and then they came back with zero memory of what occurred, but what they did have was cuts from their throat. They all had the same like hook scar. They all used to have dark hair and now had like white hair. And they all had blue eyes, but now they had like black eyes. So they were completely different. Some of their teeth had grown back where there wasn't teeth before. They were just completely different kids, but the same kids. You know what I mean? Like there was these weird differences. And the eldest daughter, Grey, goes missing again a few years later. And the two girls go off and see if it's connected to what happened when they were children. And also just trying to find out what happened when they were children because they don't remember it. I probably explained that really bad, but this is just so good, guys. It's so good. I could literally, oh my gosh, I just love this book. It is weird. It is the weirdest, scariest book I've ever read. I think, is this YA? I feel like it's YA, but it definitely creeped me out. Like the ending, what was that? What was that? In like a good way? Like, you will never guess this ending. It is impossible to guess the ending. Even the second time around, I was like on the edge of my seat the whole time. It was just so good. If I had to put this under like a subgenre, I'd put maybe like paranormal. But that's kind of all I can say without spoiling it. But holy wow, guys. If you take anything from this video, take this book, please. Next book on this list I didn't like Die Hard love it, but it was still really good and I would still recommend it, and that is Horrified by Katarina Leno. This story follows Jane. She moves from California to Maine with her mother following her father's death. They move into their grandmother's old like mansion that kind of has a reputation in the town of being really spooky and creepy, and take a guess what happens. You're right, it is creepy and spooky. This was really good. It is YA, and it definitely, I feel like this is more YA than House of Hollow. actually by like a lot. Like I didn't find this scary at all. It was strange, but it wasn't scary. Really good if you aren't a big horror person but you want to get into it, or you don't want to be super spooked out. This would be really good. Just a warning, open ending. That's kind of the reason I didn't die hard love this, because I hate open endings, but that kind of just comes with the genre. But yeah, it was good though. It was good. Next is a very popular book, rightfully so, and that is Layla by Colleen Hoover. I read this last month and literally like loved it. I think I gave it 4 stars. I want to say 4 stars. But anyway, this follows Leeds and Layla following after a incident that occurred that left Layla very scarred, and they move to, well, they don't move, they go visit a bed and breakfast where they met to try and like rekindle their relationship, try and just get over what had occurred between them, and like just kind of help the situation. And then some really creepy stuff starts happening, and like Miss Hoover's fashion, the plot twists were insane. I read this book, like I read it over the course of 2 days, but I also read this at work, like on my break, and I was literally there, like people were talking to me and I'm like, you just got to give me a second. Like it was towards the end where everything was kind of unraveling and I'm like, oh my god, and I had to go around telling everyone what actually happened because my reactions were that like probably exaggerated, but I was just so like, what did I just read? I did not find this super predictable. I've heard a few people say they did. I can't relate because I was shocked with the plot. It made sense, like when it happened I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense, but I just did not think about it. I don't know, but it's really good. It's paranormal romance. Oh my gosh, just read it, please. It is so good. The camera keeps moving, just ignore that. She's literally stacked on pillows. Next we have a classic, and that is Dracula by Bram. This, I feel like I don't really need to say much about it. It's about Dracula, obviously. I'm actually halfway through it. I haven't finished it, but I love it so much. I will say that the beginning really caught me, and towards the middle I'm like, oh, it's a bit slow. But I can tell just kind of by how the story's going that I feel like the ending will pick up. It's like one of those books. But it's really good. It obviously follows Dracula. It actually follows a lot of different characters, which I don't really want to say what they're about because I don't want to spoil it. But there's a bunch of different characters, a bunch of different POVs. We have letters in here from like characters and stuff. So it's really, really good. And it's easy to read. Kind of. I mean, it's easy to read for a classic. We are now moving on to the lesser known books. I have 3 that I haven't really heard anyone talk about. This first book I read over a year ago. I do want to do a reread of it, and I remember like exact scenes. I'm gonna read the back of the book for the plot just because I don't want to spoil it, but the fact that I can remember like exactly what happened in the story just goes to show how memorable it is. I got it thrifting, and usually with thrillers, if you know, I don't absolutely love them, and it is rare for me to like absolutely fall in love with a thriller, I usually just give them to charity once I've finished it, because like I've read it. Like thrillers, it's hard to get that same feeling twice, but this book I just couldn't. It was that good, I just had to keep it. And that book is Creepers by David Morrell. Creepers, that's what they call themselves. Urban explorers who illegally enter sealed buildings, hotels, offices, department stores, many of which have been abandoned for years. Exploring one is like going into a time capsule. Mystery and danger add to the adrenaline rush as the building's secrets are unveiled. One chilly night in New Jersey, a group of creepers enter the Paragon, a hotel designed and built during the glory days of Asbury Park by a reclusive millionaire. The magnificent structure, which foreshadowed the beauties of Art Deco architecture, is now a decrepit building marked for demolition. But the Paragon has a disturbing history, and soon after the group enters, it becomes clear that the decaying 7-story building holds more secrets than they could have imagined in their worst nightmares. Danger and terror and death wait for them in a place ravaged by time and is evil. Creepers is a suspenseful, gripping joyride of a thriller with customary brilliance. David Morrell, the father of the modern high-action adventure, inexorably draws you to the story that will haunt you for nights to come. Oh my gosh, that was really long, but it was, yeah, that's what it's about. It's basically an abandoned building. These people go and explore it, and then they find out it's not actually abandoned. Long story short, really good. Next, we have 2 books by my favorite author, which is C.J. Tudor, one of my favorite authors, favorite thriller author. We have The Taking of Annie Thorne, which is the first book I read by her, and then The Other People. Both are really good. Both are similar in sense of, you know, the writing style and how it's set out, and kind of similar plots, but not really. Like, if you liked one, you like the other, but they're not the same. I'll talk about both of them. Then, one night, Annie went missing, disappeared from her own bed. There were searches, appeals, everyone thought the worst, and then, miraculously, after 48 hours, she came back. Though she couldn't or wouldn't say what happened to her. But something happened to my sister. I can't explain what. I just know that when she came back, she wasn't the same. She wasn't my Annie. I didn't want to admit it, even to myself, that sometimes I was scared to death of my own little sister. Now, the email arrived in my inbox 2 months ago. I almost deleted it straight away, but I clicked open. I know what happened to your sister. It's happening again. I don't know if you can tell, but I obviously like stories about children who go missing and then they come back not the same. I don't know what it is. I just think it's creepy. This is really good. Very paranormal. If you liked House of Hollow, you'll love this, though this is adult, I believe, and it's much more don't read this at nighttime type of vibe. And then we have The Other People. This says she sleeps, a pale girl in a white room. Driving home one evening, stuck behind a rusty old car, Gabe sees a little girl's face appear in the rear window. She mouths one word, Daddy. It's his 5-year-old daughter, Izzy. He never sees her again. 3 years later, Gabe spends his days and nights travelling up and down the motorway searching for the car that took his daughter, refusing to give up hope even though most people believe that Izzy is dead. Fran and her daughter Alice also put in a lot of miles on a motorway, not searching but running, trying to keep one step ahead of the people who want to hurt them. Because Fran knows the truth. She knows what really happened to Gabe's daughter. She knows who is responsible, and she knows what they would do if they ever catch up to her and Alice. I will say, this book I found to be a tad more predictable than The Taking of Annie Thorne. Like, The Taking of Annie Thorne, I had no idea what was going on the whole time. This, like, I kind of got straight away what was going to happen in terms of, like, his daughter and what really occurred there. Briefly, like, obviously I didn't really understand it fully because C.J. Tudor will always leave you guessing, but I had a rough idea. But even then, like, the story is just so complex, and similar to Colleen Hoover, there's all these plot twists that you don't really see coming. It's just fantastic, and if you're a thriller reader and you haven't read C.J. Tudor and you like paranormal stuff, like, literally, what are you doing? Read it. Alrighty guys, that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you found a book or two that you were interested in. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you on my next video. Bye guys.